I always had the opinion that Bellarmine did everything right.
Recruiting, and more recruiting.
Well, I don't really care what my time is. And they're like, okay, so like, what do you think you're going to go? I said, faster than you.
Listen, this is what you do. This is what day it is. This is everything else that happens during the Derby.
The next pitch I saw, I hit a no-doubter, and that just set the tone for the little tournament, and we freaking ran through that thing. I love telling that story.
I don't think I'll find anything like this ever again.
Summer's rolling along. It is as hot as it's ever been in June around here. Just can't wait to get out of the 90s. Thanks for joining us on KRT today. I'm Jack Kaiser, and as always, remember that you can find the links and clips to all our episodes across our social media platforms. Just search at BU Nights. This weather is miserable for everybody, but especially if you're trying to run. Our guest today can relate to that. He's a former All-American and the head coach of the men's cross-country and track and field teams here at Bellarmine. Chase Broughton is with us today. Chase, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's hot out. It's really hot in here, too. I don't know if it's just me. Let's start with this. What are you guys up to right now in the summer?
Yeah, a lot of, for myself, a lot of recruiting for the class of 2023 has begun. I've had a lot of unofficial visits and things like that. For the cross-country guys, their summer training's in full effect. Luckily they can do things for distance running on their own, with their hometowns, wherever they're from. So they're able to get the work in and get prepared for the fall. The track kids, they're kind of took a nice long break off of a long track season, and they're kind of starting to get geared up for the fall training as well.
So I mentioned the weather, 90s. What's the worst weather that you've ever run in?
Ooh, I've had a lot of torrential downpours. I think a couple that come to mind is usually the early fall, early September cross country meets when it's about still 90 degrees, it feels like, and the humidity in southern Indiana where I ran was always crazy high. So that was tough. But I remember when my sophomore year, I was trying to qualify for nationals for the first time ever in outdoor track, and we had this really long lightning delay and rain delay, and I didn't toe the line until about midnight, and it was still in a torrential downpour. And that's probably the worst conditions I've ran in that come to mind.
Midnight? They'll still go?
Yeah, it was a last chance qualifier. So they knew like if you didn't have the meet that day, there was no other opportunity for people to try and qualify. And luckily enough for me that they had it because I was still able to get the job done. I was the last one in to the national meet from that race, and the guy that finished directly behind me was the first one out. So
wow,
it was. Yeah, that's something I remember just sitting in. It was at North Central College in Illinois, and I remember just sitting in their gym on the rain delay for like 4 hours, just sitting there waiting. I was supposed to race so much earlier, and but yeah, it was worth it in the end.
Did you get up and like jog around, stretch to try and stay loose?
Yeah, I would walk around the halls and stuff like that, just so I'm not sitting there stiff the whole time. But there was only there's so many people in there. There's only so many places you could go. It was interesting. That's the longest rain delay I've ever experienced in any sport that I've ever been a part of.
Wow. So maybe take rain out of the equation. Would you rather run in 10-degree weather with some wind or 100-degree weather?
Oh, I would probably say 10 degrees. Because you can always put more layers on. Yep. When it's 100 degrees, there's not much you can do about it. You're gonna suffer. It's just, it doesn't matter how fit you are. You're gonna suffer. And so I would take the cold any day.
Yeah, that's what those guys are going through right now during their summer training because it just cannot seem to cool down at all.
Yeah.
Do you guys, provide any instruction for running in the hot weather outside of just, stay hydrated?
I recommend that they get up, early, probably like 6 a.m. or something like that, and knock it out if they can, because it's maybe only 70 degrees instead of 90. It's still going to be hot, still going to be really humid, but you're going to have a lot better luck just getting up and knocking it out early in the morning. But yeah, proper fueling is the key comparatively to everything else.
Right. So I'm guessing you still run?
Occasionally, not near as much as I used to. Maybe 20 miles a week, 25 at max.
That's still a lot compared to the average human being. So do you do that on your own time, or do you train with the team?
Most of it I just do on my own. Occasionally the guys will, hey, coach, come run with us, run with us. And I'll run with them maybe, during the season, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or so. And I think that also gives us the time just to talk and, get to know each other a little bit more, have fun. But at the same time, I want them to have that time to, with their teammates and stuff for the most part. So I don't try and, intervene too much.
Yeah, understandable. You're still their head coach. So how'd you gravitate towards running and the sport initially?
So at my elementary school, I started running when I was in 4th grade. And my brother, who's 6 years older than me, was really good at running when he was young as well. I remember his 5th and 6th grade year, he was the county champion and everything like that. But like most kids from Indiana, I thought I was going to be an NBA basketball player someday, play for Indiana. And in order to play basketball, you had to run cross country. Well, my very first race I ever ran, I won. And then I, didn't lose for I don't want to sound cocky, but I didn't lose for 3 years. And that was just races within the county for cross country, and obviously when you're winning, you enjoy something a lot more than when you're getting your butt kicked when you're losing all the time. So I think I knew I was talented at it, and I'm a really competitive person, so I just gravitated towards it because I was successful at it, and it just kind of snowballed into, what I'm doing now.
So they wouldn't let you play basketball unless you ran cross country?
Yeah, just because, they wanted to get sport participation in cross country and track and all the other sports that were offered. So everybody that wanted to play basketball, which was pretty much the whole boys school there, because everybody grew up wanting to play basketball in Indiana. So everybody had to run cross country. At least the practices, they had to do kind of treat it as conditioning almost.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm a competitive person, so I just put myself in there, and here we are.
For sure. No, that's the opposite of what it is today. I mean, they want you to specialize, and they don't want you to play other sports. It's an interesting dynamic that probably a lot of small towns, didn't get to experience, but has been the case a lot today. I mean, are you looking for other athletes to try cross country and get that crossover, or are you more focused on people who just want to specialize cross country, track and field?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I like kids that have grown up playing multiple sports, because they're a better overall athlete. I think that also helps you with injury prevention and different things like that, because you've just trained your body to do a lot of different movements, particularly for a distance runner and for even a sprinter. The movements that you're doing is basically just running in a straight line. So if you've grown up playing football or if you've grown up playing basketball, you have those lateral movements and different things that can help train your body. So I look for multi-sport athletes, but obviously once you get to this level, you can't really be a multi-sport athlete in college unless you're top of the line, special. It's kind of a blend of both. I want people who are passionate about our sport and want to do our sport at this level. But at the same time, I was a multi-sport athlete in high school, obviously coming from a small high school. So I also kind of gravitate towards those kids because I can relate to them.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned injuries. I mean, is it common for guys to run through injuries in cross country or track?
I mean, we try not to.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be little nagging things that kind of pop up that you can train through. But you have to kind of learn your body and learn the difference between an injury and something that's just sore. We definitely don't want to run somebody that's injured. But I would say, it's not uncommon for somebody to have something that's kind of slightly nagging them that they can work through and do some strengthening and work with our athletic trainers or a PT and different things like that can just get them through it.
Gotcha. So you mentioned basketball as another interest for you growing up. Was there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on the baseball field as well. My parents actually founded our little league in our hometown.
Oh.
So basically, all summer I was at the baseball field every single day, all day. So I love baseball, I love basketball. Those were my two passions, I would say, as a kid. And then as I got a little bit older and was having a little bit more success in running, like I said, that's kind of when I knew, like, okay, this is the sport I probably have the best chance at competing in college and having the most success in. And so I just pursued that. I huge baseball and basketball guy.
What position did you play in baseball mainly?
I was a utility guy, so I played my freshman and sophomore year in high school. Actually, I didn't actually run track those 2 years.
Okay.
And my sophomore year, I literally played every position in a game with the exception of catcher. So depending on who else was pitching, I would be the guy that moved around and filled in the holes of wherever, so I could play wherever. But for the most part, I would say I was second base or center field.
So you literally played all 8 other positions in one game?
Not in the same game. I was saying, like, throughout the.
I was like, wow, they were really moving people around.
No, just throughout the season, at some point I'd played all the different positions.
Yeah, and I'm sure that did help you to some degree with your running, right?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I think growing up playing those sports, the team aspect, doing whatever you need to do to win. You can learn a lot of things, from each sport and apply it to different things. One of the things that always stuck with me, even when I was a competitor in college and now that I share with my guys, is my baseball coach would always tell us, control what you can control. I'm sure that comes from a lot of sports and you hear it at a lot of places, but he was the first one that actually said that phrase to me, and that stuck with me. And I would use it all the time because, oftentimes when you're running, it's just you out there. You don't have anybody else to rely on, and you can't really control what your other teammates are going to do, or you can't control what your competitors are going to do. So you have to focus on what you can control and just get the most out of what yourself. So I would have to remind myself of that almost every time I towed the line, and that helped my career tremendously. Just that little phrase, as odd as that sounds.
No, yeah, it makes total sense. One thing that always amazes me about sprinters, distance runners, anybody in cross country, track and field, is how mentally strong they are. I can't imagine doing what you guys do on a daily basis. The mental strength just seems to be off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, our sport, every sport has a big mental aspect, but I think there's something, particularly for cross country, takes a particular type of person to want to go out there and push themselves to the limit for 25 to 30 minutes. It's not easy to stay focused and engaged, that entire time. There's no breaks, there's no timeouts, nothing to catch your breath or anything like that. Like you're pressing the whole time, and you have to be mentally prepared, mentally tough, in order to do that.
Yeah, I mean, people try to run a mile every day, and they can't do it. Like, for some people, it's hard, and for you guys, it's easy. And I've always thought that's so cool. Men's cross country and track and field head coach Chase Broughton joins us on KRT. So I'm guessing you watch the Olympics a lot growing up.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Still follow it pretty religiously?
Yeah, for sure. USA Outdoor Champs is this weekend, so I'm excited to watch that for track and field.
Okay. Have you ever been to any of those events?
Never been. I was close to qualifying my senior year in the steeplechase, but unfortunately I got injured, and wasn't able to hit a qualifying time. But definitely there's a lot of guys who I've raced against numerous times that have been there and raced there, and so it's kind of odd for me, watching now, seeing guys that I raced and that I know, trying to make an Olympic team. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know when the next time the Olympics will be in the United States. Do you know when that is?
Should be 2024.
24. Okay, that's coming up. Do you think you'll try to make it out to some of the events if possible?
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see what's going on.
We'll see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Will anybody? I know you weren't a sprinter, but will anyone touch what Usain Bolt did sprinting?
No.
Ever?
No chance. That dude is a freak of nature. I mean, just watching him, like, so effortless. He's a once in a lifetime type of athlete. Like he's a Michael Jordan, he's a LeBron James type guy. Like, those guys don't grow on trees. He's a unique blend of talent and the type of talent that works really, really hard. And yeah, I don't think we're going to see another guy touch that.
Yeah, his name is Bolt. Like he had
Yeah.
to do that. There was no other choice for him. And I can't say I watch every single track and field event in the Olympics. I do like to watch, but I mean, he was mesmerizing. I would schedule my days as a young kid around watching Usain Bolt, and I think a lot of people can say that. So I can't imagine how exciting it was for guys really into track and field and cross country like yourself to watch him and others do it every single year.
Yeah. I mean, he's, like I said, he's just freak of nature, and it was pretty cool getting to watch him just dominate everybody. You know, it was kind of one of those things. It's like, okay, who's going to come in second? You know,
Yeah,
it wasn't even like, oh, this is going to be fun to watch, see who wins. It's like, okay, we know Bolt's going to win.
Yeah.
Which American's going to try and come in second? Like, you know, that's pretty much kind of what it was when he was there.
So after high school, you went to USI, a former fierce rival of Bellarmine in Division II. I guess both schools are going to soon be D1 now. So it's funny for people who work in sports, their friends or family are fans of the rival, and then they say, how could you ever go work for that school? And they don't realize, like, when an opportunity like this comes up, all that goes out the window. You want a good opportunity in the job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's actually really funny how this all worked out. You know, I vividly remember this was about 2 or 3 weeks before Coach Vargo retired. We were at the national championships in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was sitting with my college coach. I was an assistant at USI at the time. We were eating dinner, and I was like, man, if that Bellarmine job ever comes open, I would really like it. That, you know, that's a job I want. It's the closest job I can get to my family. You know, they're a great school. Just kind of a perfect location. It checked all the boxes that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. Like 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a call from Scott Wiegand, and you know, saying, hey, this job's open. Would you be interested? And I was like, yes. Well, what do we need to do? Sign me up. And it all worked out. And then, you know, I love being here. I love the people I get to work with. And like we talked about before the interview started, I'm going home Saturday watching my nephews play some baseball. I'm excited. I get to do things like that. You know, that stuff's important to me, and that's what makes this job so special, even though they were USI's kind of big number one rival, I would say.
Yeah, but obviously you're happy with where you're at, and you know, being close to home, that work-life balance is really cool, and not everybody gets to experience that. So back to USI for just a second. You were an All-American, and I'm curious, did you feel yourself at some point go from like really good to All-American level?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long process. So I started out at USI as a walk-on. You know, I wasn't stellar in high school. You know, I was good for our area, but I wasn't anything special. So I was excited to get to a place with such a storied program with so many talented guys, and you know, I kind of worked my way up, and you know, I had a lot of failures. You know, I got to nationals as a sophomore for the first time in outdoor track and just got smashed. You know, in junior year I had an injury at the national championships and had to drop out of cross country. Junior year indoors, I remember we were one spot away from being All-American in the DMR, and so there was a lot of failures kind of led to that point. And I'm like, you know what? I remember talking to my coach. I'm like, I'm never leaving one of these meets again without being an All-American. I was like, I'm not feeling this ever again. And sure enough, you know, that next outdoor season, you know, I was got my first one my junior year, and then after that, I was just like, okay, you know. And then I got a lot more confidence, and I was like, I can do this. I know what this takes. I know what this feels like, and so I was able to have a lot of success my senior year, just kind of riding that wave.
Yeah, no, that's a great. I didn't realize you were a walk-on at first. That's incredible. You were able to rise to that level, and now you're leading a program, and you have for the last 4 years with track and field and 3 with cross country. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a wild ride. You know, obviously getting hired in the middle of a season in February, that was a huge adjustment for myself and for the team. You know, the next year we had COVID hit, so we didn't have an outdoor season. And then we had to transition to Division I, didn't have a fall season. We had indoor and cross country at the exact same time, trying to balance that. And then last year was felt like the first somewhat normal year. but it's been great. We've the program's gotten better off the foundation that Coach Vargo laid. I think we've broken in the last 3 years 20 or 22 program records. So we're on a really good trajectory. We have a great incoming class coming in that I anticipate us continuing to break more program records and elevating our program to close the gap to the top teams in the ASUN.
I was talking to head swim coach John Brucato about this. With sports like swimming, cross-country, track, where it's very individual-based, is that what you mainly find yourself focused on? And when the individual parts all start to come together, that's when it translates to team success?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like, the regular season, those meets are a lot more individual focused. Like, okay, we're going to give you the opportunity that you need to do to run fast, to throw far, jump high, whatever it might be. But when we get to the conference championships, it's a different environment, it's a different feel. Everybody's kind of then shifts. So, hey, coach, what do I need to do to help the team? And the mindset's different. And we want people who are willing to put the team first, who are not just worried about their individual success, but also want our team to be successful. And every guy that we have in the locker room right now checks that box. We won't bring somebody in if they're only focused on themselves. But it is a unique sport in the sense that, yes, it's individual events. It's not like you can really alter, like you can't game plan for a team and say, okay, we're going to shut this guy down. We're going to stop him, from attacking the midfield, whatever. You kind of have to focus on each individual, event and say, okay, we need you to score this many points, and kind of try and map it out that way to see how you can be successful. And there's some strategy of where you're going to put people in what events because obviously you can do 3 or 4 events across the regular season at different meets. So that's where the biggest strategy I think comes in. But at the end of the day, you got to line up and race or compete, and it's a unique sport and unique challenge to kind of deal with.
Yeah, and circling back to where we started with training, like from a broad sense, outside of setting up training, like what are you looking for as a coach? Like what are you telling these guys for cross-country runners and the track and field guys? Like how do you coach them? Yeah,
I mean, it's our sport is very, very much individualized. So just for example, like we've got guys this kind of fall that'll probably run as low as like 50 miles a week. We've got guys that'll probably get up to high as like 80, 85. So the volume is going to be very individualized based off of where they've been in the past. Have they been able to handle that kind of mileage? Have they been successful at that? Do we need to make adjustments on that? The practices even, like especially in track season, an 800 guy is going to be doing something very different than a guy who's training for the 10K focused. So we may have 3 different workouts going on at the same time at practice that I'm help monitoring and doing different things. So it's kind of hard to put into words. Like we could be here for an hour talking about the training side of it because it's so individualized and so different from person to person, which is another unique thing about our sport. In basketball and baseball, it's kind of like everybody's going to be doing the same type of things at practice, other than maybe when you separate guards and bigs. That's kind of the analogy that I like to use. When you break off into those things, you're going to be doing different things. The post guys are going to be doing post drills, the guards are going to be doing ball handling drills, whatever. So it gets very individualized in our sport, and I think that's, as a coach, that's probably the toughest part, is figuring out what makes each individual tick. And that's a process over, we talk about over the recruiting process, and also just as they get here and we work together. Hey, did this work? Did you like this? What did you feel like you needed more of? What do you feel like you need right now to be successful? And it's ever changing throughout the season. I think that's an important quality for a coach to have, is not being set in your ways, not being rigid, not treating everybody as the same. Because everybody takes something different to be successful. Yeah,
that's a good perspective. And you mentioned over the season. Well, there's really 2 seasons for you. I mean, there's cross country, there's track and field. How challenging is it? There's a lot of crossover, but how challenging is it to be the head coach of 2 sports?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of crossover. I think the toughest part is, we're in season basically from August to if you make the national championships in outdoor till mid-June.
Yeah.
You know, you're in season pretty much the whole year. There's really no other sport that's like that. You know, so I think just staying mentally engaged that entire time is the toughest part for athletes and coaches, because that's a long season to be engaged and be all in on it. But at the same time, you know, this is a sport that we love and we're passionate about, so we're getting to compete year round. You know, if you have a bad season, you don't have to wait 6 months to do it again. You get to wait a month, 2 months, or sometimes even a week if you have a bad race. Like, all right, I get to turn around next weekend, I'm going to get after it and make up for it or have a better performance. So I think it's you know, double-edged sword. There's a lot of really, really good things about it. I think the downside is just obviously being as long of a season as it is, trying to stay engaged that whole time. But you know, I think the trade-off is well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll leave you with this. What are you most looking forward to this upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, last year we were a very young team. You know, we had, I think it was 29 guys on the roster, and 16 of them were true freshmen.
Wow.
So I'm most excited about seeing their growth and our team's growth. Yeah. You know, we returned the majority of our team. And we'll do so for the next couple years, obviously. So I'm excited to continue to close the gap to the top teams in our conference. You know, that's what we've been talking about for the last few years, is slowly closing that gap down, doing it the right way, and being competitive in the ASUN. You know, I don't care if they have more bells, whistles, whatever. Like, we want to show up and we want to compete. And our goal is to compete at the top of the conference. And I'm excited for these guys to, you know, now having a year under their belt or 2 years, to really start closing that gap down, to really start making some noise within the ASUN.
Yeah, well, we're excited to watch and follow. Chase, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it was a good time. Glad to be here.
Men's cross country track and field head coach Chase Broughton. They get their season started pretty soon, a couple of months from now, and they'll be back underway. That does it for KRT Episode 18. Subscribe to our YouTube page. Follow us on social media @BUnites to hear from Coach Broughton and all of our other guests. I'm Jack Kaiser. Swords up.